Welcome to South Carolina Live, episode 32, at the Voice of College Football. My name is Walker Gaskins. I'm the new host of the channel, and we have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, the past 2 weeks have been very eventful for Gamecock football, but I felt it was only right that I introduce myself first. Obviously, as you can see on the screen, my name is Walker Gaskins. Just to be frank with y'all, I'm a born and bred Gamecock fan. My first fancy photos by a photographer were in a Gamecock onesie. It's in my blood, the University of South Carolina. And as I've grown older, my passion for college football has grown, and my passion to talk about college football to other people. And thankfully, the Voice of College Football Network and Mark Rogers have granted me this amazing opportunity to host South Carolina, the Voice of College Football. So I'd like to thank them, thank Lucas Hill for this amazing work that he's done with this channel so far. He's taken it to great places. And just speaking to him, he's always offered advice, been very kind. So excited to see what he does in the future with his media career. And also thank all of the fans here. South Carolina fan base is one of the most loyal in the country. I know that by heart. And I'm excited to build upon a strong Gamecock community here at the Voice of College Football. But with that being said, it's been an eventful 2 weeks. I've been itching to start talking about this ever since the season ended after our loss to Clemson. First, let's talk about the coaching staff with South Carolina, and that's the South Carolina offensive coordinator search. This has been a long, thorough search for the next coordinator at South Carolina. And I think all of us are ready to just get this closed, and for a good reason. Mike Shula was fired following the loss to Ole Miss in early November. I think it was November 2nd. And although we all agree that we want to get this right, I'd be lying if I said I didn't see a common sentiment among many Gamecock fans with how long this process has taken, especially when you look at the head start Shane Beamer and this football program had in front of other coaches who already have their new staffs hired. And I've seen this kind of concern, especially in the past 12 to 24 hours in the Gamecock community on Instagram, on X, on YouTube. But I'm really not worried about it as much as I was when it first happened. I mean, after the Clemson game, my heart was racing. I was like, all right, let's get this done. Let's not lose. But I think this process has been very serious and very concrete and very slow for the right reasons with Shane Beamer. And also you have to think about athletic director Jeremiah Donati playing a role in this hiring process as well. Beamer wants to get this done right. I mean, obviously, he's the head coach. He wants to get this done right because that's his job. But if we're being frank, it's basically agreed upon by everyone that if he can't bring winning results to South Carolina in 2026, which would be his sixth season in Columbia, with arguably the most talented group of people since the Spurrier eras, if not more talented than some of the teams Spurrier had, we might be having a conversation about who will be the next head coach, not just the offensive coordinator, not just the next running back coach. I think everybody in the Gamecock community knows that 2026 is the defining season for Shane Beamer. You go 7-6 in 2021, 8-5, and then you go 5-7. All right, one bad season. You've defied expectations the first two. 9-4, fantastic. Now 4-8. Shane Beamer has shown that he can succeed. We saw that with the 8-5 seasons in the two top 10 wins against Tennessee and Clemson. We saw that in 9-4 season last year, where we went on a 6-game win streak to end the regular season and almost made the college football playoff. But consistent winning has been a struggle at South Carolina, not just under the Beamer tenure, but really in the history of Gamecock football. Now, this certainly feels like the most extensive and close-guarded search that Beamer has done. This felt more close-guarded than Loggins when he became the OC, and certainly more than Shula. And I'm actually impressed with the Gamecock football program on how close-knitted this entire process has been in Columbia. There's been a roller coaster of buzz, rumors, and reports on the offensive coordinator search. Obviously, at first, there was a lot of reports that John David Baker was expected to be the next offensive coordinator if everything fell through. I was one of those who reported that. Not that it was finalized, but that if everything went through, he should be. But, of course, that got pulled under the rug by Ole Miss, where he used to coach in 2021 and 2022. and also some interest with the Virginia Tech opening. And then you have Brad Glenn at Cincinnati, Matt Wells at Kansas State, Kevin Decker at Old Dominion, Jason Beck at Utah, which I would say is probably the fan favorite. And now most recently and strongly, Kendall Briles at TCU. Now, Briles' name I had heard a few times throughout the past week or two, but not strongly enough to really put it out there until the past about 48, 72 hours where his name just really exploded over the weekend. The Gamecock insiders are strongly reporting about Briles. And, they usually don't say something unless they have serious buzz about it. And that combined with obviously all the flight trackers I imagine half of you see on X and the buzz around his running back coach makes me believe that he should be announced as the next OC very soon. I'm not saying he will. Nothing's confirmed. Nothing's a done deal to my knowledge. But that is the expectation in my mind. I think everything is going to fall through, and I think Kendall Briles will be heading to Columbia. That is my prediction after this very roller coaster-like offensive coordinator search. But one quick thing, if you want to stay updated day to day with all the things I just said, follow my X account, WG_Sports_CFB. It's in the white box right below my name. That's where I post daily and sometimes hourly updates with this offensive coordinator search, National Signing Day, transfer portal news. That's where you'll hear all the news regarding Gamecock football on a daily basis rather than weekly shows. But going back to the topic, for context, here's where South Carolina ranked in major offensive categories in 2025. 106th in total offense, 336.3 yards per game. 102nd in scoring offense, 22.7 points per game. 67th in passing offense, 225.2 yards per game. 118th in rushing offense, 111 yards per game. 69th in red zone offense, 84.6%. And 125th in third down conversion percentage at 32%. Obviously, all of the stats are extremely problematic for South Carolina fans and any fan any fan for a football team if they saw their team had those stats. Our offense this year was really disappointing. Not only did we fail in so many situations where we honestly, with one more score, probably could have sealed the game. You look at Texas A&M, you look at the Missouri game, you look at our chances against Clemson in the second half, against LSU, against Ole Miss. After what we saw this offense do in 2024, to come into 2025 and see this honestly was a punch in the face for me. And I think it was for a lot of fans. I mean, could I have expected that it would have taken maybe a small step back? Yes, I wouldn't have imagined, but I personally predicted, and I think most people predicted that it would take a step up. You upgraded in the wide receiver room. If anything, your offensive line only got older. But for this to happen, especially after all the talent you brought in through the transfer portal, not with the wide receiver position, but in other positions, it caught a lot of people off guard in the Gamecock community and in the football community as well. It certainly caught me off guard. Now, this is where TCU ranked in the same categories in 2025 under Briles. 30th in total offense, 425 yards per game. Tied for 43rd in scoring offense, 30.8 points per game. 9th in passing offense, 293 yards per game. 93rd in rushing offense, 132 yards per game. Tied for 98th in red zone offense, 79.6%. And 23rd in third down conversions, 46.8%. Now, I don't think I need to say much about those stats. I think everyone can obviously tell that all of those stats were better than South Carolina's, except for the red zone offense, which was about 30 spots lower nationally, which is a little bit of a concern, but every single one of those other stats was substantially better than South Carolina in 2025. Now, yes, obviously those things are good. Yes, you can probably say you're concerned with the red zone offense being worse than South Carolina's in 2025, which South Carolina fans probably had a heart attack half the time we were in the red zone. And also that rushing offense, considering that this is in the Big 12, which is not the same as SEC defenses, if we're being honest. But despite this, I feel more confident and more assured when I look back at the past production from offenses led by Kendall Briles. Now, I'm going to bring up KJ Jefferson's stats at Arkansas. So KJ Jefferson was the quarterback at Arkansas from 2019 to 2023, transferred to UCF in 2024. Kendall Briles was the offensive coordinator for KJ Jefferson for about 3 years. So Kendall Briles has SEC experience at the offensive coordinator position. But I'd say what's most important here is I just want to look at the stats. 2021, 2,600 yards passing, 21 touchdowns. You look at 2021 rushing, 660 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. It only gets better in 2022. 2,600 passing yards, basically matches it with another 3 touchdowns. And he basically matches his rushing yards from 2021, except with 3 more touchdowns on the rushing side. So 6 more total touchdowns from 2021 to 2022. Now, keep in mind the 2022 stats that I just named. This was Lenore Sellers stats in 2024. 2,534 passing yards, 18 touchdowns. 2024, he rushed for 670 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. So we've seen that Kendall Briles has not only been the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for an athletic Lenore Sellers type quarterback, but statistically, KJ Jefferson had a better season than Lenore Sellers. When you look at their passing yards, passing touchdowns, when you look at the completion percentage. So that reassures me when it comes to the coaching ability of Kendall Briles in the Power 4 in the SEC. He has that SEC ability to coach. And what I also really like about Briles is his development of athletic quarterbacks. Josh Hoover at TCU this year, Max Duggan. We all remember the crazy run he went with in TCU in his first year under Sonny Dykes. KJ Jefferson, Seth Russell at Baylor. The list of quarterbacks who've been successful under him at the college level is impressive. It really is. So I personally, in regards to Kendall Briles, think this would be a very good hire. I would prefer this over Kevin Decker, maybe not Jason Beck, but I don't think Jason Beck's really a name to look out for at this point. Based off of the entire offensive coordinator search, Kendall Briles is my number 1 pick. But now it's time to move on to the offensive line coaching search. Now, if you ask a Gamecock fan what the most painful position to look at when it came to coaching was offensive coordinator. Now, the only answer you might get instead of offensive coordinator was our offensive line coach. Lonnie Teasley obviously did not live up to the expectations that we wanted at South Carolina. He was a great recruiter, of course, but he could not develop that talent into an SEC caliber offensive line. We saw that in the past 2 years, especially, where Lenore Sellers was one of, if not the most sacked quarterback in college football, which says something considering the fact he's the most athletic quarterback since Cam Newton. So definitely want to make this offensive line coach hiring right for Shane Beamer, considering the line of scrimmage has been probably his biggest weak point as a head coach at South Carolina. Now, there's a few names that have been floated around. Firstly, and most notably, Phil Trotwine, who's the offensive line coach at Penn State. He's a great recruiter. He's brought in many blue chip recruits and is involved with 5-star offensive line Maxwell Hiller, excuse me, who's the number 1 offensive lineman in the class of 2027. But rumors are that Florida is looking at him as well. And when you look at the fact that he is a Florida alum, he did play offensive lineman was an offensive lineman at Florida, on top of the fact that John Summerall decided not to retain their former offensive line coach who worked for Billy Napier. I'd say the signs are probably leaning to Trotwine heading to Gainesville, to his alma mater, which I don't blame him. But if we did get him, not only is he a good recruiter, but also he's provided good offensive line results. I mean, look at Penn State. They may not have been the best offensive line in the country, not on par with maybe Michigan's, but they're definitely an upgrade from South Carolina's offensive line. I've also heard a little bit about Nick Cardwell, the Cincinnati offensive line coach. I would be surprised if that happens. I haven't heard much, I haven't heard much validity around his name popping up, so I wouldn't expect him. But also want to talk about Randy Clements. He's the current offensive line coach at North Carolina. But the thing is, he's been with Kendall Briles in multiple places before. He's coached with Briles at Baylor when Kendall's father, Art Briles, was the head coach in the early 2000s. Him and Kendall coached at Houston together, at Florida State together. So the thing about Randy Clements is not only does he have that coaching experience in the Big 12, in the ACC, in multiple conferences, but this is a guy who knows how Kendall Briles thinks, knows his system, and can work with him. And we've seen that in the past. My best guess, honestly, would be Clements. It's just an educated guess. I'm not an inside source. I would probably, if I had the choice to pick from the three, I'd pick Trotwine. But my guess would be Clements. Not very sure. Haven't heard any front runner, to my knowledge, about the offensive line coach search. But I will definitely keep that updated on my X page, which you should follow. Next thing. South Carolina running back coach search. There's been a couple names that have been thrown around the running back coaching search following Marquell Blackwell's firing last week. And when you look at his firing, obviously when you saw Beamer fire Lonnie Teasley and fire Mike Shule, it was clear he wanted to take the program in the next step. But by firing Blackwell, I think it definitely signaled to the Gamecock community that he's going all in on this offensive revamp. He's realized that what we've done has not worked. It's not going to work if we keep it on the same direction. Knowing that his job is probably on the line for 2026, he's definitely revamping this offense. And for context, like I said earlier, this is a rushing attack that only averaged 111 yards per game in 2025, which is in the hundreds. It's 118th in the nation. As a Southeastern Conference team, you cannot be in the 100s or close to the 100 in rushing yards per game. I know one of Shane Beamer's biggest things is run the ball and stop the run. We've been able to stop the run in years past. We have not been able to run the ball, especially in 2025. It was probably the worst rushing attack I've probably seen under Shane Beamer as the coach. Now, there's been two main names that I want to focus on with the running back coach search. First is Jimmy Smith. Now, Jimmy Smith has connections with Kendall Briles. He's working with him now at TCU. He just wrapped up his second season there. But he's also coached with Briles as the running back coach at Arkansas, like I mentioned earlier, where they coached notable running backs such as Rocket Sanders, which I'm sure all Gamecock fans know and love. And they also had an extremely strong rushing attack in 2021 and 2022, which is what I mentioned earlier. But I definitely like Jimmy Smith's rushing attack in balance with Kendall Briles. I think they try to spread the defense out, get the ball down the field, and by spreading the defense out, they definitely have a better rushing attack. But I would be somewhat concerned with how that would translate to South Carolina, knowing our offensive line in the past has not been as solid in run blocking as we would like it to be. But Smith would definitely he would be an all right option. But the second name that I honestly would prefer is Stan Drayton, the Penn State running back coach. If I had to get the pick out of these two or any other running back coach, it would be this guy. And I'm just being real with you. If I see an announcement that Stan Drayton is the new running back coach at South Carolina, I might just jump out of the seat. It'd be an absolute home run hire for the Gamecocks. And all I got to do, I'll just name a few players that he's coached. Ezekiel Elliott, Ohio State, Bijan Robinson at Texas, Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, both Penn State running backs who rushed for over 1,000 yards in 2024. Katron Allen rushed for 1,300 yards in 2025. So this guy is proven in developing running backs. I mean, these are some of the biggest name running backs in the past decade in college football. But there's also a connection with him with Shane Beamer, which I found very interesting. Him and Beamer worked together at Mississippi State in 2004 under then head coach Sylvester Croom. So Beamer knows this guy personally. He's mentioned before in past in like pressers and conversations how he's spoke to Drayton before asking for advice in years and seasons past. And honestly, I look at Penn State. They finished 6-6. They obviously disappointed their preseason expectations. Preseason number 3 team, I believe, but they still rushed for over 2,000 yards. And one of their backs had 1,300. That's impressive no matter what their record is, no matter what you say. But I also want to take a moment. I just talked about how some of the significant players he's coached and the rushing performance that he's had, but I also want to look a little bit at his recruiting ability. So I'm going to present. This is the top all-time commits that have signed to Stan Drayton and the school he was with. Bijan Robinson, obviously 5-star. Yes, you're reading that right. Cam Newton. Stan Drayton was a part of his recruiting process at Florida. Same with Chris Rainey, Ezekiel Elliott, Marshawn Lattimore, Curtis Samuel, Eric Smith, Jerome Baker, Mike Weber. All of these guys are some big, not only some of the biggest names in college football when they were playing, but also just elite blue chip talent recruits. And the reason I bring that up is because this would be a drastic change from the past 2 years, where Blackwell didn't bring in a single running back out of high school in his 2 years. Not one, not two, 0 in the past 2 years. Didn't sign one. So personally, my guess would be Drayton with Beamer's connection. On top of, if you're on X, you've probably seen the flight trackers reporting the Gamecock jets traveling to State College. It'd make me assume it's him, but as of now, I'm just as curious as any other fan. Beamer has kept this very close-knit. However, I definitely would love to see Drayton be the running back coach here. And nothing against Jimmy Smith. I think Jimmy Smith definitely could do good things here as well. But Stan Drayton would be an excellent running back coach hire. And I still feel like I'm underselling how good or how much potential you would have here at South Carolina. I'm going to remove that. But we've talked about offensive coordinator. We've talked about the offensive line coach. We've talked about the running back coach. I want to shift away a little bit from the coaching perspective and more focus on South Carolina's recruiting class. A prime example of blocking out the negativity. The Gamecocks had nothing less than an impressive national signing day last week, especially considering all the offensive staff uncertainty, like I just stated, and a 4-8 finish to the season. I'm actually going to go and present my screen here and show the entire recruiting class for South Carolina. Here's our recruiting class. You have Darius Gray, Julian Walker, Xavier Currents, Aiden Harris, Zion Giles, Landon Duckworth, Sequel Patterson, Kosky Barnes, Noah Clark, Andrew Harris, KJ Johnson, Keenan Britt, Tristan Lewis, Caden Ramsey, and Anthony Baxter. Now, it's definitely one of the smaller recruiting classes, especially in the past few years under Beamer. But the thing I love about this is the quality of the class. First of all, you look at 5-star offensive linemen. I know they have Darius Gray as a 4-star on 3, but every other site has him as a 5-star. Number 1 offensive lineman in the country. You have Julian Walker, a big 4-star flip from Michigan, originally committed to Michigan, had just gone to a trip to Michigan on rivalry week. And what I found interesting is after that recruiting visit, a lot of the Michigan insiders and community were feeling very confident about keeping Julian Walker from South Carolina. Now, Sterling Lucas and Shane Beamer, and they obviously kept working on the phone with him. Julian Walker from Dutch Fork High School eventually postponed his signing ceremony one day, and then he flipped to South Carolina. So just a big get for Sterling Lucas. You can't underscore how important that is. I think he will be the next great edge rusher at South Carolina. But also, I want to focus on the ability to recruit in-state. Like I said, Julian Walker on 3 has him as the number 1 player in the state of South Carolina. You got Jazavion Currents, South Point High School, just won a state championship. The 9th-ranked safety in the country. Huge get for Torian Gray in that secondary for South Carolina. We got the 10th-ranked quarterback in the country, Landon Duckworth. There was obviously some buzz about Lane Kiffin and LSU flipping him last 48 hours, but Landon Duckworth stayed committed with the Gamecocks. Sequel Patterson, a 4-star athlete who's mainly a wide receiver, going to South Carolina. 4-star defensive back Koski Barnes. So we definitely did a good job with in-state recruiting, which is one of Beamer's points. Win the recruiting battle in the state of South Carolina. South Carolina has plenty of talented players. Now, it's not Florida, it's not Texas, it's not California, but it has plenty of talent to bring in to the flagship university of the state. But also, Beamer did mention in his press conference how they won in North Carolina. And when you look at this, he makes a good point. I mean, you have Aiden Harris, 4-star defensive lineman, and then you look at Koski Barnes, who's out of North Carolina, Noah Clark out of Durham, Andrew Harris, the twin brother of Aiden Harris, might be the next big brother twin for South Carolina, Matthews, North Carolina. You look at how we performed in the state of North Carolina, despite Bill Belichick, despite all the schools in close proximity to those recruits. We did a very impressive job with winning in North Carolina, and I'm actually very proud of how Beamer did in the Carolinas in 2025. Now, this recruiting class is ranked 15th in the country, despite the fact it's a smaller class. But when you look at the average quality of recruit, we are 9th in the nation. Despite the 4-8 season, despite the uncertainty with the offensive staff, despite all the negativity that no doubt not only were these recruits seeing on their phones and seeing live throughout the season, but also I guarantee you that every single other coach trying to go after these players was probably whispering in their ears, bad-mouthing to a certain extent about South Carolina's performance this year. I guarantee it. And despite this, Shane Beamer and co. did an excellent, phenomenal job on the recruiting trail. And I just want to bring up real quick, I certainly don't like this idea that you can't be happy with how we did on the recruiting trail. I see a lot of Gamecock fans on social media, whatever platform it may be, get mad at other Gamecock fans for celebrating how we've done on National Signing Day. And in my opinion, I think that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Yes, I'm disappointed with the 4-8 season. Yes, I'm disappointed with one of the biggest letdowns on preseason expectations in Gamecock history. Yes, I'm frustrated as heck that we can't build on winning seasons. But the two are not mutually exclusive. I do not have to be mad about how Beamer and co. did on the recruiting trail just because of this season. I think this is one of the first steps in building a winning season in 2026 and hopefully years after for Shane Beamer. So definitely impressive in my mind for the South Carolina Gamecocks and the entire program with the recruiting trail. So recruiting's been good. Obviously, the offensive coaching staff has been wild. Let's talk about the transfer portal. After this season performance, obviously, and rightfully so to probably some extent in many people's minds, there's a lot of noise coming out of the transfer portal regarding the Gamecocks. As of now, the players who've entered the portal from South Carolina are tight end Michael Smith, offensive lineman Nick Sharp, defensive lineman Xavier Hardy, wide receiver Amazon Littlejohn, and linebacker Jaron Willis. Biggest thing so far, obviously this list could grow by the hour. You never know. No star players have left so far, besides Smith, who you could argue had a lot of potential, and I think he did. But just a lot of players who have been depth pieces for South Carolina over the past few years, which although definitely hurt, definitely wish them the best, and I think they're going to go be great in other places. It's not the star players like Lenoris, like Nick, like Dylan Stewart. Definitely not those type of level of players who are kind of the figureheads for South Carolina football right now. I think in regards of those type of players like Lenoris, I think in regards to whether they come back or not, I think there's a lot to play into. There's what Shane Beamer's telling them. There's what their family's telling them, their friends. NIL, from what I've heard, definitely is playing a part in it for a few of the key figureheads in South Carolina football. But also, I imagine who is the new offensive coordinator, who is the new offensive line coach, who is the new running back coach, who is South Carolina bringing in to coach these star players is also not only just a coaching decision, but probably a recruiting pitch as well for these star players. So I imagine we're probably going to get some answers. And my best guess is we're probably going to get some answers about some players transferring or not after we get these coaching hires finalized. Now, in regard to the list of players who've actually transferred, though, I firstly want to know, I'm very curious about what happened with Xavier Hardy. I had high hopes for this guy, and I think most of the Gamecock community did too. He was the number one JUCO player in the country, and he only saw the field in one game in 2025. And that was against Coastal Carolina, where he didn't record any stats. I'm not going to lie, but keep it a buck, I was shocked. I was really surprised this season with not only – I get that just because you're the number one JUCO player in the country does not mean you can translate to the SEC. I understand how big of a jump that is. But I'm surprised that it didn't mean seemingly anything by the fact he only started in one game. Now, if there was drama or if he just didn't perform in practice, I don't know. I don't have a clue. But it really bewilders me that he didn't get more PT, especially as the season progressed, when you saw how gassed we were in the fourth quarter on defense, which I don't blame the defense. After you've been on the field for definitely way more than you should have been because of our offensive struggles this season, you're really telling me you couldn't have put in a fresh body who was the number one JUCO player in the country and go let him play ball, especially as we got closer to losing out on a bowl eligibility. And after we lost out on bowl eligibility, really makes me curious about what happened with Xavier Hardy. Now, I'm also a little bit, I guess disappointed would be the right word with how Nick Sharp worked out here at South Carolina. When I first heard he came in this past transfer portal season, I was excited. I mean, I looked at this guy over 700 snaps at Wake Forest in 2024. I was like, whoa, okay, some experience. That's something we need on the line. 6'2", 340 pounds. He has the size and height to compete in the SEC. Now, I don't know what exactly happened. Obviously, he didn't play much this season, but he was definitely one of my favorite players to watch out for and definitely one of my favorite newcomers coming into this season, which unfortunately didn't work out. And then this next section, I just added this probably 30 minutes before the show started because I just started hearing stuff about it. I didn't plan on talking about it, but I figured just to put it out there in case someone wants to in case something happens in the future, we have it written down. We talked about it. We all know that Clayton White is a very good defensive coordinator. Now, has he struggled to make defensive adjustments at times? Yes. Has he struggled in a lot of key close game situations? Yes. But no doubt that he is a highly sought-after coordinator, and for good reason. I mean, you look at the 2024 Gamecocks defense, right? You look at 2025s, which, yes, they had disappointing moments, but also when you're on the field for 15 more minutes than you probably should be, that definitely plays a factor as well, right? It's hard to keep that same energy for that long when your offense can't sustain drives. And just today, he was put on the hot board for the Tennessee defensive coordinator position by On3. Now, I personally, if I had to take a guess right now, I don't think he would go to Tennessee. Tennessee, I think, is obviously, I'm stating the obvious, big rival of South Carolina. And considering what we pay Clayton White, I think we pay him a little over $2 million a year, which is about the same to what Tennessee paid their former defensive coordinator, about $2.15 million, I think it was. Is there a chance that Clayton gets a phone call from Tennessee and offered probably maybe a little bit more money than he's taking now? Yes, I think that's very possible. That's very plausible. If someone told me that, I wouldn't be shocked. But in my mind, for basically a lateral move, I don't think that's likely for Clayton White. I also think it's funny to note that on the On3 hot board, the three top guys were all Clayton White, our defensive coordinator, our former defensive coordinator, or a guy who used to play defensive back at South Carolina. I thought that was just kind of a funny little thing that they put on there. But in regards to the Tennessee defensive coordinator position, I don't think I'm too worried about it. But at this point, as a South Carolina fan, I'm not putting anything past me at this point, to be honest. But one thing I also found interesting that came out, let's say probably 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks, was being connected to the Coastal Carolina head coach position. Now, Coastal did fire their head coach, Tim Beck, after a lackluster into the 2025 season. And quickly thereafter, he was named as one of the top names to watch for the position. And I'm not sure if Clayton White would take the Coastal job, but when you look at the fact that South Carolina's former associate athletic director, Chance Miller, is the current AD for the Chanticleers, I think that's one connection that certainly makes things interesting for Clayton White. My educated guess is that he's not going to leave South Carolina. I think, if anything, we'd be willing to pay him more for what he's brought to this defense, which has honestly been the best phase of football, especially in the past 2 or 3 years, but I'd say probably during Shane Beamer's entire tenure at South Carolina. But it's definitely something to look out for. I know Columbia would probably burn to the ground if Clayton White left, especially after everything that's been going on in this offseason. But obviously we've gone over staff rumors, staff reports, staff changes. It's going to be very interesting, going to be very fun to see. And we've talked about National Signing Day. I want to wrap this up with a very, very early 2026 outlook for South Carolina. Now, I'm going to be honest, I was very disheartened, very heartbroken by the 4-8 season. One of the most just tragic things I've ever experienced in my young Gamecock life. That Texas A&M game will live with me for years to come. And I'm also really just disappointed with South Carolina's inability to build off of winning seasons. And I said this earlier, but I want to restate it again. 2026 will be, without a doubt, the defining season of Shane Beamer's career and his tenure at South Carolina. When we look back a decade from now, we will point to this coming season as the make or break for Shane Beamer. And frankly, I think if everything pans out how we hope it does, how we think it's most likely to right now, I think he's absolutely taking the right steps needed to achieve that. National Signing Day, very promising. 9th ranked recruiting class in the country when it comes to the quality of recruit. 15th nationally when you just look at the point system that they use. Despite all the uncertainty with the staff and definitely everything going around in college football. As of right now, if everything hits like most Gamecock fans would hope with the offensive staff searches and being able to retain Clayton White, I think that's absolutely the next steps. Bring in a college-style offensive coordinator, not one of the pro-style NFL guys who have plagued us since Beamer's been here, with Marcus Satterfield, with Dow Loggins, with Mike Shula. Bringing in Kendall Briles will be like – bringing in Kendall Briles for me would be like I was underwater in the swimming pool for 20 seconds too long, and the second I heard Kendall Briles, got hired, I finally got a breath of fresh air. That's going to be, I think, how positive Kendall Briles' tenure will be here at South Carolina. So I'm not saying that we're about to go make the college football playoff, like Shane Beamer said in the press conference, or be in the hunt for it. I'm not saying anything about the season. We're still in the ending phase of the 2025 season. I know exit meetings are probably being wrapped up as we speak. But when you look very early at next season's outlook, it's one of those things where you won't really believe it till you see it, especially after the flip-flop in the past couple of years under Shane Beamer. But you can't help but feel that this is all pointing in the right direction as of now for South Carolina football. So I'd like to ask once again, make sure you like, make sure you share, and please make sure you subscribe. There's no negatives to subscribing. There's nothing bad. There's no downside. All you're doing is supporting the show. You're supporting me. You're supporting this network I'm a part of, and you're becoming a part of the amazing Gamecock community. So I ask that, firstly, thank you for watching. I'm really excited for this opportunity to be the host of South Carolina, the voice of college football. I'm excited to do these weekly shows, which will be on Mondays at 7 p.m. EST consistently. So that is the same time you should be expecting. And then make sure you follow me on X, WG Sports _CFB. That is where I don't bring weekly updates, but daily and oftentimes hourly updates. So with that being said, make sure, once again, you subscribe, you like the video, follow me on X, and thank you for watching South Carolina Live, episode 32 at the Voice of College Football.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.